In the dead of night, as the village lay in a deep slumber, the stillness was shattered by a piercing howl that echoed from Mukalana, the dense patch of forest at the edge of the village. The villagers woke, startled, unsure of the threat lurking in the shadows. Moments later, a second, more chilling cry emerged from the woods, closer this time, somewhere between Mukalana and the village, spreading waves of terror. Just minutes after that, the third and most dreadful howl reverberated from the very heart of the village, raising the hair on the backs of those who heard it. The year was 1943, and in a remote village in Sri Lanka, fear grew like a shadow among the community, who had learned to read the land and its omens through centuries of wisdom. The sound of that third cry was enough to tell them that something far more sinister was afoot. A conclusion reached when they remembered that Mukalana's edge neighbored the village's ancient cemetery. In the village, men often slept in the open, on the verandas or the rough-woven mats laid outside their homes. That night, however, every household shut their doors, mothers calling in husbands, sons and brothers, barring the entrances with whatever they could find. Throughout the night, the flicker of lanterns and oil lamps moved through courtyards as watchful eyes kept vigil, anxious for any sign of movement. Listening to every noise, alert and solemn, was Headless Devil, the village sorcerer. A healer and mystic, he had seen enough in his years to sense that what plagued the village was no ordinary haunting. The howls, echoing so close to the graveyard, hinted at something unnatural. Perhaps a malevolent spirit, a restless soul, or worse, a cursed entity. At dawn, long after the rooster should have crowed, the village remained silent and still, with no one daring to leave their home until the sun hung fully in the sky. Eventually, the elders gathered and approached Headless Devil's humble home, seeking his guidance. Headless Devil listened carefully, his wrinkled face tightening with concern. He revealed his suspicion: a rogue Pilia, a mystical construct of dark magic, had broken free of its master's control. By midday, the somber village became anxious when Agihami Nanda, an old woman who lived with her son Somadasa, shuffled to the meeting. She told the elders that Somadasa was missing. She had not seen him since he went to bed the previous night. Her age-worn ears had not registered the eerie howls. Headless Devil's face darkened at her tale, fearing the worst. He organized a search party, and the villagers scoured every corner until they found Somadasa, unconscious and cold, lying on the sandpath that led to the cemetery. The villagers carried him back to Headless Devil's home, where the healer worked tirelessly over the next 2 hours. Finally, with a splash of cool herbal water, Somadasa stirred awake. Yet, his return to consciousness brought little relief. He muttered wildly, eyes unfocused. "Where is he? Don't let him take me. Where is his head?" With ritual charms and protective threads tied around Somadasa's neck, Headless Devil gradually coaxed him back from the brink of madness. Bit by bit, the story emerged. He had woken at the first howl and watched from his mat as the second cry resonated. Paralyzed with fear, he witnessed a shadow, shapeless but menacing, advancing towards his home. He saw the creature for what it was at the third howl, a headless figure carrying its own severed, bleeding head by the hair, stalking towards him with a crazed, murderous stare and a trail of dripping blood. Somadasa's safety, Headless Devil realized, was due only to a protective charm Agihami Nanda had requested months earlier, a charm now tied around his wrist. But Headless Devil knew it wouldn't be enough. The Piliads would return that night, seeking another soul. That evening, the village transformed under Headless Devil's leadership. His wide garden was cleared and prepared, enough to accommodate the entire village. Lanterns filled with coconut oil were prepared, as were bundles of dry palm leaves soaked in incense. Every family contributed offerings: jaggery, dried meat, medicinal herbs and flowers, all arranged in precise patterns to aid the ritual Headless Devil planned. Women cleaned the courtyard, while men erected stakes to hold torches that would light the garden when darkness fell. By dusk, the village gathered, clustering around Herath Hami's large yard, lit with oil lamps and the warm glow of countless candles. Women, children, and the frail stayed indoors, while the stronger men stood outside, clutching talismans and prayer beads, staring into the growing darkness with wide eyes. The night was thick, oppressive. Herath Hami and his aides began chanting as the first howl, distant and mournful, rose from Mukalana. The chanting grew louder with the second howl, now much closer, vibrating in the very air around them. Suddenly, the third, bone-chilling cry erupted directly outside Herath Hami's compound, this time so close that it sent a ripple of panic through the crowd. Then, through the misty, moonlit gloom, a figure began to emerge. All eyes turned toward the path leading to Herath Hami's house, a headless silhouette, bathed in faint torchlight, walking slowly towards the gathering. Its body was twisted, and from its severed neck and the head it carried, a stream of thick, dark blood oozed. It moved as if in a trance, compelled forward by the echoes of the ritual drums and the chanting. Closer it came, and a vile stench like rotting meat filled the air. In its hand, the severed head swung, blood-drenched and bearing a wide, lunatic grin, with eyes unnaturally wide open, glaring at the villagers. The sound of heavy breathing, ragged and desperate, carried on the wind as the creature neared the edge of Herath Hami's garden, then stopped abruptly. Herath Hami stepped forward, his voice rising above the fear that clung to the villagers like a suffocating mist. With a commanding gesture, he raised his arms and uttered the final incantations, a mix of prayers and curses designed to draw out and contain the evil. Suddenly, the headless figure trembled, as if resisting an invisible force. At that moment, the village seemed to hold its breath. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the crackling of flames and the faint sobs of terrified children. Then, with a deafening roar, the creature vanished in a burst of light, leaving only the echo of its tortured howl behind. The village remained quiet that night, the oppressive darkness broken only by the steady glow of Herath Hami's ritual fires, burning long until dawn. It was only with the rising sun that the villagers dared to breathe freely again, feeling the weight of the curse lift, knowing that they had survived a night of horrors beyond imagining.